Viewers, there was once a meat shop that no one ever visited. But one day something strange happened. The owners of the shop, a husband and wife, started selling a different kind of meat. Soon people from all over were flocking to buy it, no matter the price. They couldn't get enough. But when they finally discovered the truth about what they were eating, they were left utterly speechless. This story begins with a small, humble meat shop, run by a dedicated couple, Brand and Sophia. They worked tirelessly, offering meat from various animals, but over time, their business began to fail. People stopped coming. Their sales dropped significantly, and soon their savings were gone. They had invested everything into the shop, and now had nothing left. One day, as Brand and Sophia were going about their usual work, 3 masked individuals stormed into the shop. They were part of a group of vegetarian extremists who often attacked meat and fish sellers. The trio wreaked havoc, throwing paint and destroying the shop. Brand managed to fight them off and even removed one of their masks, but the attackers quickly retaliated. They beat Brand and fled, leaving him and Sophia shaken and angry. This wasn't the first time such an attack had happened. Brand and Sophia had suffered countless assaults like this before. Desperate, they went to visit an old friend of Brand's, named Yu, who was wealthy and had no sympathy for their struggles. Yu mocked Brand for his lack of security and finances, then gave him a gun to protect himself. Though Brand didn't have a license for it, he accepted the weapon, knowing it might be their only hope. On their way back home, something shocking occurred. Brand spotted one of the men who had attacked their shop, riding a bicycle nearby. Consumed by rage, Brand stopped the car, reversed, and accidentally ran the man over. He was dead. Brand and Sophia were now in a serious situation. If they went to the police, they would be arrested. No one else had seen the incident, and there was no way to explain what had happened. Sophie suggested they hide the body and keep everything a secret. Brand, feeling trapped and desperate, agreed. They took the man's body back to the shop, where Brand, skilled in butchering meat, began to cut him into pieces. The next morning, things took an even darker turn. Brand awoke to find the human meat he had butchered was missing. A customer, Leah, came in and praised the meat she had eaten just an hour earlier. She couldn't get enough and asked for more, curious about which animal the meat had come from. Brand, unable to confess the truth, lied, telling her it was pig meat brought from other countries. Leah left, still raving about the taste. Brand was unnerved, but Sophia, thrilled by the praise, didn't seem to mind. But Brand knew something was very wrong. They had just sold human meat. As the day went on, their business exploded. More and more customers came, eager for the same meat Leah had enjoyed. Brand reluctantly sold more, unable to refuse. By now, they had sold so much meat that their business was thriving again. But Brand couldn't shake the feeling of horror. How could people be so eager to eat it? That night, Brand decided to try the meat himself. When he tasted it, he realized it was unlike anything he had ever eaten before. It was delicious. Sophia explained that the meat of vegetarians tasted so much better because their blood was pure, altering the flavor significantly. As their business flourished, Brand and Sophia thought they had found a perfect solution to their problems. But when they ran out of human meat, they realized they were in deep trouble. They had no more customers, and they needed more. The next day, Sophie's daughter brought her boyfriend, Drake, to the shop. It turned out that Drake was a vegetarian, and he was encouraging Sophie's daughter to follow the same path. This infuriated Sophie. If everyone became a vegetarian, who would buy their meat? As they sat in a restaurant discussing how to expand their business, an idea struck them. They decided to kill a chef who worked at a nearby restaurant, reasoning that his large size would yield a lot of meat. That night, they followed him as he closed up his shop. But when Brand lunged at him with a knife, the chef managed to escape. Their first attempt failed. Sophie, realizing how risky their plan was, urged Brand to come up with a better strategy. They came up with a clever, if twisted idea, disguised themselves as vegetarian doctors, and began protesting against meat consumption, recruiting others to their cause. Once they had a group of vegetarians, they could pick them off one by one, kill them, and sell their bodies for profit. Brand and Sophie's twisted business model had only just begun, and it was only a matter of time before their darkest plans took shape. Sophia called the man to meet them, and just as Brian was about to kill him, the man arrived with 2 friends. Brian hesitated and canceled the plan. He couldn't attack them all. However, the thin man offered Brian a chance to strike and protest against non-vegetarians. Brian, eager for any opportunity, accepted the offer and joined them. They reached a meat shop they planned to destroy together, but Brian froze when he realized it was his friend Yu's shop. Brian had always been jealous of Yu, whose shop was thriving while his own was struggling. In his rage, Brian helped destroy the shop completely. The next day, Brian and Safia discussed their actions and how terribly wrong they were. Brian became angry and stormed off. Meanwhile, a man approached Safia, flirting with her. They spoke romantically, and he went home with her. As things grew more intimate, Safia discovered he was a vegetarian. In a shocking moment, she cut his thigh to avoid excessive bleeding. Brian returned to find the man injured at their house. Safia told him they had to kill him. It was the only way to grow their business and get rich quickly. Brian refused, saying he could never be part of such an act. But Safia blackmailed him. If he didn't do it, she would marry the man and be physically intimate with him. With no choice, Brian reluctantly prepared for the attack. However, just before he could act, he changed his mind. He couldn't go through with it. Safia, unfazed, went ahead and began getting intimate with the man. When Brian saw the man, now undressed, he assumed they had already been physically intimate. Consumed with rage, Brian attacked the man, beating him mercilessly. In his fury, he took the man's life. Safia was shocked, but there was no sign of fear on her face. Both of them had created a new model of business, but they showed no remorse as they stood in front of the inspector, their faces calm and collected. Meanwhile, the inspector continued his investigation into the destruction of Brian's friend's shop, the very one Brian had helped destroy. Despite the tension, they maintained their composure. The inspector pulled them aside for interrogation, and Safia began to panic. If the inspector learned even a little bit of the truth, they would never escape. But something unexpected happened. The inspector asked them to provide the famous meat from their shop, the same meat that had been sold so quickly and was loved by customers. Relieved, Brian and Safia knew they had dodged a bullet. The next day, they sent the meat from the same man to be sold, and it was gone in an hour. Their business flourished, and they continued selling the meat, growing richer by the day. Slowly, they began raising prices, but the demand never wavered. People had become addicted to the meat, and no matter the cost, they kept buying. Brian and Safia's wealth grew, and they became very rich. One day, while having lunch with his friend Doobie, Brian learned that Yu's shop had suffered a huge loss and was no longer running. Brian had always been in competition with Yu, and now, with Yu's shop failing and Brian's own thriving, tensions escalated. The two began arguing, and it turned into a full-blown fight. Brian, in a strange trance, seemed to become something else, almost zombie-like, and chewed on a piece of Yu's shop's milk. Later, the inspector came to Brian, telling him that many vegetarians had been disappearing and his department suspected Brian's involvement. But Brian insisted he had no part in it. Still, the pressure was mounting. Brian and Safia continued with their plan, destroying more lives, killing vegetarians in various ways, and selling their meat to an ever-growing customer base. The money flowed in, but deep down, both knew they were on the verge of being caught. One day, while alone in the shop, the three men who had attacked Yu's shop returned. They wanted to test the place to ensure no evidence remained. Only Brian and Safia knew their secrets, so they planned to eliminate Safia. They attacked her viciously, but when Brian arrived home, he saw an unfamiliar car. Panicked, he ran inside to save his wife. In a deadly encounter, Brian's dog killed one man, but another attacked Brian, injuring him badly. However, Safia was not defenseless. She grabbed a sharp object and struck the man in the head, ending his life instantly. A few years later, both Brian and Safia were caught. They surrendered, tired of living the life of crime they had built. What had begun as a thrill now seemed like a dark and horrifying nightmare. The punishment for their actions would be a lifetime of hunger, paying for the terrible choices they had made. And so the story ends. So viewers, how did you like this story? Please let us know in the comment section. Our team works hard to bring you these stories, so don't forget to subscribe and check out our other videos. See you in more thrilling tales.